We should get going, okay? Get started.
Okay, sure.
Great. Hi, ladies. Thanks for coming. Welcome to everybody to our oral history workshop with the Arab American National Museum as presented by our new friends, Shatha, Najim, and George Harb, who are community historians. Here come more people. Great. I'm Denise Blanchett, and I teach, as you might know, English 101. And last year, my colleagues, Dr. Perry, who's in St. Thomas, and Dr. Honore, and lady in the back, Dr. Resendi, who's the president of the Society of Virgin Islands Historians, have been kind of working on how to integrate oral history into what we teach, because it's really important, especially in the Caribbean. It's important everywhere. And in my English 101 class, for the last 3 years, we've done oral history projects, and we made use of the works of Karen Turland and Richard Schrader, who are famous oral historians within the Virgin Islands. But as I listen to the stories and read the stories of students of Palestinian descent, I wondered, well, where are the histories of the Palestinian community? And I asked my historian friends, and they said, well, there's one article in a Dr. Highfield, and that's it. And I thought, wow. And so when we went to present at an Oral History Association conference in Ohio last year, we made sure to go to a presentation done by to the Shatha Najim, who is a community historian with the Arab American National Museum. And after the session, we went up and talked, for instance, to Virgin Islands. And did you know that we have a very large a vibrant Palestinian community here? And they did not know that. And then I said, well, we think it's really important, given what's going on in the world, that their story be told. And so when we returned to St. Croix, we reached out to the Palestinian, Virgin Islands Palestinian Friendship Association. Is that Liz? Is that Liz Goggins? No, okay. All right. And asked them if they would like to work with the Arab American National Museum on an oral history project. And at this point, we've done how many? We've done 3 well, I haven't, but Shatha has. Shatha is a
4 now.
3 oral histories of people within the Palestinian community here, and we hope to do more. And also, George Harb and Shatha are coming down for the Palestinian Virgin Islands Friendship Day in November to do an oral history workshop with people in person, because not everybody wants to do an oral history via Zoom, right? So, anyway, is that Liz back there? Yes. You can write your name down later. I wanted to introduce you. This is the executive director of the Virgin Islands Palestinian Friendship Association, and she's come to join us, so she's helped organize that group. And would you like to say a few words, Liz, about what your organization does, and then we'll turn it over to Shatha and George. And that's it real quickly. And Shatha, I don't think you've met Liz. She's again the executive director of the Virgin Islands Palestinian Friendship Association. Great.
Awesome. Nice to meet you.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Afternoon.
Nice to be here. The Virgin Islands Palestinian Association was organized last year, and its purpose is friendship and cultural exchange. The Palestinian community has been here for decades, and still a lot of people who have known the people in that community, and vice versa. We have the shop owners and stuff. It's a very vibrant community. Many people are not aware of kindness and generosity, and that's something we'd like to get across. So we had 2 events last year. This year we'll be doing it again. We're working out the scheduling because it does the holiday season, so scheduling can be difficult, but we will definitely let everybody know. We do have a Facebook page, please follow us. The Palestinian Friendship Association. And if you have any questions, please let me know.
Well, thank you so much for coming and joining us. Sure. Way to speak. Yeah. And now what we'd like to do is Dr. Rossetti, who's the president of the Society of Virgin Islands Historians, is going to introduce our guests, who we are so happy and honored to have and have developed our friendship with them. I said to Shatha and George, you know, mostly when we have meetings, we just want them to end, but when we have meetings with them, it's really fun. And so anyway, Dr. Rossetti, could you introduce our guests?
Yes, I am Betsy Rossetti, and our members of our society are very interested in Palestinian organizations, Palestinian groups, community here. We have historically have had Joseph Alexander. How many know Alexander Theater in Christiansted? It says Alexander Theater. Did you go to movies at Alexander Theater when you were young?
Yeah.
And then also Dr. James had a dance groups and performance groups at Alexander Theater. Well, Joseph Alexander lived in that area of Sunday Market Square, and he contributed a lot of things to the community, and he also served as an officer in the municipal government at the time. So that is one person from Western who in the 1930s was here in St. Croix. The other person is Jose Chabal. He was, maybe more people know Tricia Murphy, his wife. She was a member of Society of Virgin Islands Historians, but he came here when he was an infant, and he had to leave school at 8th grade to help his father's shop and dry goods store. Then he went and bought land out east and had a stock farm, and he bought land over by Hess as well. So he had businesses. They had all businesses. So there's also the Abdullah's store in Christiansted on Company Street. Anybody have heard of Abdullah's? Well, we're all
Stop there.
on the same page. And that is another family, an Arab American family. So we have three historical Arab American families that we are working on oral histories with. So I was very interested in having our two speakers today.
Thank you, Betsy.
You want to introduce Shatha or
Yes,
okay, okay.
I thought I would see them.
Yes, we can.
Okay. Shatha, Najim, right there. Wait for hand, please, Shatha.
Hello.
See who's there. All right. Is a community historian with the Arab American National Museum, where she leads efforts to document, preserve, and share Arab American stories. She for a decade of experience in museums, nonprofits, academia, and grassroots organizations, both in the US and the UK, where she went to school. She specializes in oral history, ethnography, archival preservation, and storytelling on all careers that young people can have that are part of this kind of social science teaching and learning. She bridges scholarship and community engagement to ensure underrepresented voices that are preserved in meaningful and accessible. He manages the oral history collection and directs the virtual story gathering initiatives. George Harb, who is right there, he's raised his hand. George Harb is a community historian at the Arab American National Museum and has been since 2022. He focuses on oral histories, national outreach, preserving family history. His work includes conducting oral history, conducting Arab American institutions, and digitizing archival materials. with extensive experience in historic preservation and cultural efforts. He has worked closely with the Arab American diaspora with a focus and concentration on the Palestinian American diaspora. I present you Shatha and Lord.
All right, it's all yours.
Thank you so much, Betsy, Denise, and everyone who was involved in organizing this workshop. So we really appreciate you doing that, and we're happy to talk. We'll get into details on some fun stuff, but George, I'll let you take it.
Yeah, so first of all, again, thank you guys for inviting us to do this incredible webinar presentation. We're so happy to do this. And thank you to everybody that attended. We're very happy that you're here. And you are what makes our role at the museum very much worthwhile. So just to kind of go off of the great introduction from Betsy, I am George Harb. I'm one of the community historians at the Arab American National Museum. I've been there since about 2022, and kind of like Betsy said, I focus on oral histories, kind of like national outreach and preserving family history. And while Shatha and I both focus on oral histories and, conducting, making sure we gather Arab American stories from across the country, just because I am Palestinian, I like to focus a little bit more on the Palestinian stories because we are a little bit underrepresented historically in the country. And that's just kind of a little bit about myself. And then I will hand it over to Shatha.
Thank you again for the intro. I think similarly, my focus is also on the diaspora and more particularly since I'm based in Michigan and Dearborn, it's a large concentration, actually the largest concentration of Arab Americans in the States. So naturally, my work is with that community most of the time. We do, George and I also do different national projects, including like the one Betsy was explaining, and Denise about working with the Virgin Islands to collect stories from your community, which of course we're so thrilled about. And when we heard about that, it was just our minds were blown, right? Like Palestinians and Arabs, where? So it's been really exciting. It's been over a year worth of work with the Virgin Islands, and specifically with Denise and others making this happen. And so I'm really happy to be here. And next.
Awesome. So we're going to start off just by telling you guys a little bit about the Arab American National Museum. The Arab American National Museum was founded in 2005, so we are coming up on our 20th anniversary, which is incredibly exciting. We are based in Dearborn, Michigan, and Dearborn, Michigan is based in Southeast Michigan, and it's known for having the highest concentration of Arab Americans in the entire country. We have around, I think it's between 350,000 Arabs in one concentrated area of Southeast Michigan, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we're literally the only museum of its kind that entirely focus on the Arab American diaspora. So our mission is that we are a touchstone that connects communities to Arab American cultures and experiences. We have many different departments in the museum, and the one that you're really going to learn about is the community history department, and the work that we do and how oral histories will preserve the stories of Arab Americans and how it helps in the exhibits and things like that. So this is what the museum looks like from the outside. And we're actually going to show you, if it's okay, it's a little video. It's not very long. It's only 4 minutes, just so you guys can kind of see what the museum looks like, what the exhibits look like, and the kind of things that we do, just because I know we're saying Arab American Museum, but you guys might not know what that looks like. So we just want to give you kind of like a heads up and a visualization. So here is the video.
In the 19th century, Arab Americans have been an integral part of United States history. Immigrating from regions in Southwest Asia and North Africa, they arrived here, searching for economic opportunities, seeking refuge, or to build a new home. Each person with a story of their own. These stories live on through photos, documents, and heirlooms that together tell a larger story of the lived experiences brought to light by the first and only Arab American National Museum.
These artifacts, these objects, they're the stuff of history. Each object can tell us something about the lives of the earliest Arab immigrants or even the most recent ones. By collecting and preserving these objects, we're able to understand and record and document the stories that make up the Arab American communities history and allows us to understand their impact and share them with present and future generations.
The Arab American National Museum is our necessary and compelling storyteller, representing our diverse and rich culture through literature, research, art, and music. Our mission to document, preserve, and present the history and contribution of Arab immigrants and their descendants began in 2005 in Dearborn, the heart of Arab America.
It serves as such an anchor in our community, not just here in Dearborn, but it has such an international reputation. And their collections and what they do to keep the stories alive, to preserve the stories, to preserve that culture is so critical to our society in general.
The museum has drawn tens of thousands of visitors each year from all 50 states and different countries around the world to explore our core galleries and engage with the local community. From Dearborn to Ellis Island and reaching as far as Los Angeles and Houston, the Arab American story has been shared in cities across the nation. Our temporary and traveling exhibitions shine a light on how immigration has shaped the lives of Arab Americans today and how Arab Americans have in turn shaped this country.
The museum gives me a home for my ancestors, a place I can return to again and again to visit and celebrate where and who I come from.
A proud Smithsonian affiliate and accredited by the American Alliance of Museums, the Arab American National Museum educates, engages, and inspires our community to continue expanding the Arab American narrative.
Together, the Arab American National Museum and the Smithsonian are able to tell a more complete American story. Telling this American story through an Arab American lens is so important because it reminds us all what it means to be human and what it means to be a citizen of the United States.
Through youth programs and family-friendly activities, we build a new generation of museum goers, bringing students into our space to learn about their culture and the culture of their peers.
To learn to be the artist I want to be.
To learn that art can be whatever I want it to be.
To learn from and teach each other about our story.
To teach people about beauty and diversity.
The museum has always stood as a national hub for hosting community dialogue, producing and sharing knowledge, and curating thoughtful programming. Today, we continue to foster a community of arts and culture, and we provide a space for us to fully and creatively express ourselves.
Where we can represent ourselves.
To tell my story.
To raise my voice.
At its core, the museum is home to every Arab American across the nation, welcoming people near and far into our doors to experience our unique and incredible story. It is a museum that tells many stories created by us and for us, and carries our legacy forward for generations to come.
Yes, so we hope that that kind of gave you a glimpse of what the museum is and what we do and where we are located and why our institution in this country is so special and it is what it is, because it really shows you that we are a museum that is built by Arabs and it's for the Arab community, and we are there to tell our own stories. So I will hand it over.
So I'm sure, this crowd, I'm pretty sure you guys know about oral histories and the importance of them, but we just kind of want to, for anyone new to oral histories or what they mean, I just wanted to start off by defining them. So oral history, according to the OHA, Oral History Association, it is a field of study and method of gathering, preserving, interpreting the voices and memories of people, communities, and participants in the past events. So I also put the Smithsonian Institution Archives definition of oral history, but simply it is an intentional interview that you do with an individual for the purpose of preserving and documenting that story. So, and also sharing that. And we'll talk more later on about sharing and different ways of sharing oral history. It can look really different according to your project. I put a screenshot of our collections on the museum's website, which basically we have different oral history collections. I like to call them mini collections that are really themed. So it's either by topic or theme, they're separated. So you have maybe 10 to 20 plus all in one collection speaking about the same thing. So, like for example, one of them, well, this one, the Family History Archive of the Syrian and Lebanese families in the American South. That one is one of our longest projects that we were doing. Basically, it was going on for 10 years, where a museum representative, oral historian, would go to the South. A lot of times it was Texas, during my time at least. And just interview people, like interview a lot of people there, get their stories, and then we did a lot of video interviews, and we just uploaded it to this collection. So it's a really robust oral history collection that we have, but also many others. Some oral histories were donated to us by community members. Um, yeah, some were just like, some came along with objects. So like as a museum, when we first opened, we got a lot of artifacts to put in the museum from the community, but a lot of times stories came with that. And they're preserved as oral histories as well. If you have, I'll share this presentation with you all also, Denise, if you want to share it with students. And please click through the website, look at the collection, get an idea. It's especially if you're thinking of doing your own oral history project, I think it's a really good place to look at, to get inspiration and just see how museums are doing this work, and bigger institutions. But also, it can be very simple. Again, we'll talk later about that. And I just wanted to talk more about our collection and what it looks like on the museum website. So I put another screenshot to give you a sense of what it is. So basically, each person that we interview gets an entry on our website. And so you see different names. When you click on the name, you will see either audio recorded file or a video recorded file, or a Zoom on there, and also along with the person's transcript of their interview, and any photos that they donated to us during their interview as well. So, but also I encourage you to go to the website and also just like look through it, because you can search based on your interest. So like, for example, like I know you guys have a large Palestinian population there. So like if you click on Palestine, it'll bring up all the Palestinian oral histories we have. And it makes it easier to search that way, just because we have like 500 oral histories in the collection, so it's a lot, and along with objects as well. So yeah, just to give you an idea of what it looks like. And some of our collection also lives in on YouTube and Vimeo. So, for example, the more creative models of oral histories that we do, like the digital scrapbooks, they're found on different platforms, just because of the nature of the interview. So, digital scrapbooks, if you don't know, are basically photos, like combined photos in a video format, and then there's a voiceover sharing that story. So like a lot of times with these, we had community members do their own. So they brought like a bunch of family photos, scanned them, and then they just recorded themselves speaking certain stories. And it is shorter. So this is definitely something we'll talk about in the next session, which is the creative models, to give you more ideas of how to utilize oral histories and how to share it. So it's, easy to digest for people, and it's a fun method, but we'll talk more about it in the next session. So I encourage you to attend as well.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Shatha. And now we're going to tell you a little bit about, like, as community historians, what do we prioritize as community historians at the museum? So basically, with our oral histories, we want to authentically represent the stories of Arab Americans from all over the Arab world. And now the Arab world consists of 22 countries. Now you might not imagine what 22 countries looks like, but it's very sizable. I mean, you're talking about regions that expand from Northern Africa, Northeastern Africa. You're talking about the Gulf states. You're talking about what's considered the Levant. And areas like that. So you're talking about lots of different dialects, lots of different cultural practices, lots of diversity of people, right? So a lot of the people that we interview, they do come from Arab countries, but they may not necessarily identify as an Arab person. So we also like to make sure that we do give that diversification in that space. For example, in Iraq, you have Chaldeans. In Syria, you have Assyrians. You might have Armenians that live in these respective countries, and they speak the language and eat Arabic food, and yet they maintain their own practices. We want to preserve and document Arab American history from their own voices, right? So I'm sure every community of color has an issue where their stories are being told by a person that is not of said community. And we want to make sure that we are the ones that are documenting these stories because we are the ones that understand our voices and we are the ones that know how to tell it. We want to combat discrimination and harmful media presentation of the community, right? The Arab American community has long suffered portrayals of inaccuracy in whether it's movies, whether it's media, and things like that. So we want to make sure that we are showing you the authentic story of Arab Americans. We come from different homelands, we come from different religions, we come from different backgrounds. And we also want to make sure that we're empowering individuals and families to preserve their own history and heritage. And really, like, history is lost when elders pass on, and it's also with displacement, right? So I also heard this quote once. I've heard it was either an African quote or it was a quote from Afghanistan, but the quote is that whenever an elder passes away, an entire library burns with them, right? So it's a metaphor for lost knowledge, right? The library represents the elder's life, and that's filled with stories. It's filled with experiences, skills, and wisdom that's not written down, but it's carried within their memory, right? And it's irreplaceable loss. Once it's gone, it's gone. You're never going to hear it again. You're never going to know it again. And it's about preserving cultural heritage, right? And it really underscores the importance of elders in preserving and transmitting cultural traditions, particularly in societies where oral histories plays a significant role. So really, oral history is one of the most ancient ways of preserving history, and it's still being in use today.
I just sorry,
Sure.
yeah. I also thank you, George. I also just want to add that a lot of times we do interview the elders in the community because they have so many stories. But the people we interview are from all age ranges. Like it's not just the elderly that we focus on. Like I've done a lot of projects with younger adults, like especially in the entrepreneurs and starting their own business. So they have, yeah, so just to encourage you all as young people also to interview each other, your friends, your family, because your stories matter. Whatever stage in life you're at, you have the special experience and that lived, your story is unique. So that's basically what I'm trying to say. And yeah, so don't be discouraged just, because someone is younger. And yeah, oral history applies to all ages is what I want to leave that with.
Yeah, yeah. And I'll tell you why I particularly mentioned the elderly, because now we're going to talk about, how did Shatha and I get into, museum work? How did we get into our respective fields? First of all, if you can't tell, this handsome gentleman in the photo is myself. This is on a trip that Shatha and I went on when we went to document the stories of Arab Americans living in the city of Bay Ridge, which is in Brooklyn. So this is a photo with the Yafa American Community Center. They are an area in southern Yemen, and they formed their own community here in Brooklyn. When I say here, I meant to say Brooklyn. So that's what that is pictured of. So how did I get into museum work in particular? So as a child, I always loved history. Okay. I live, die, and breathe history. I always say my career is my hobby and my hobby is my career. It's literally everything I do. So I'm working 24/7 all the time, even if it's not work related. I come from a Palestinian family, and I'm one of the oldest of the grandchildren. So there's about 12 of us. I'm on the older side. So when I was around, there was really no other kids. So who did I grow up with? I grew up with the elders, right? I was in the house of my grandparents all the time. I had all of my aunts and uncles there. And when I say my aunts and uncles, I mean my mother and father's aunts and uncles. So I was always just so used to listening to the stories of adults. That's where I get my active listening skills from. And with oral histories, you really have to be good at just listening. So there's that. And then, like I said, I'm Palestinian. So my Palestinian roots, they really heavily emphasize the importance of preservation because as we see now more than ever, we see how important it is to document the stories of, in particular, Palestinians because they are constantly under threat of being erased, their heritage, their roots, their culture, their homeland. So that was always something of very deep importance for me. And I've also worked on several preservation projects on Palestinian and Arab American history. I've worked with a Palestinian Preservation Project. I've curated different exhibits with them and also with myself. I just completed an artist in residency on my own family history and things like that. So you really got to have like a knack for loving history, right? It's not just history, which Shatha will talk about, but I think history is also a super big part of it. But Shatha and I are also totally different. I come from a background that is, my bachelor is in international relations, so it really has nothing to do with history. But my minor is in Arabic language. And that also really helped me too, because we do deal with a lot of Arab Americans. A lot of them do speak Arabic. So while Shatha and I's Arabic is very limited, because we live here and it's not perfect. It also plays a big role in helping and communicating, because there's things that can be said that only you could really understand, and it's hard to translate. So I will now let Shatha kind of talk about how she got into museum work.
Yeah, thank you, George. Yeah, I think for me, I also started off really young, just the interest in of learning about others and different cultures, different histories, how people do things, why do they do things. I think I was always just fascinated with that. Obviously, my exposure to different countries and that was partly due to the family traveling a lot when I was younger, but also I'm originally from Iraq, Baghdad, and my family is from the north in Iraq in Tilkif, and we come from a Christian group, ethnic group in Iraq. So, sort of political climate, without getting too deep into it, led to my family's immigration of Iraq and eventually to the U.S. So during that period of my life, I was just, I had to live in different places, different countries, and it was, as a kid, I enjoyed it. I was like, of course, it's terrible to be displaced, but as a kid, I was like, wow, I get to see different countries, different people. So I think that really opened my eyes to, how I wanted to continue my life basically and what career I wanted to get into. So when it came time to go to college, I think I was pretty set on doing anthropology. I was like, it sounds like a perfect fit. So I did. I got a bachelor's in anthropology, and then after I was like, let's continue. It's so interesting. So I did a master's in social and cultural anthropology, and and so when I graduated with that, it was COVID. It was COVID, so the job opportunities was very limited at that time. So it was so I had to really think. Actually, it was a good time to slow down and think and just reflect on what I want to do. And for me, I just always came back to volunteering, community engagement, going back to my roots and what I really care about, right? So, and what I really care about is my community and helping out others, documenting stories, just getting involved, basically. So I joined different nonprofits. I did a lot of volunteer work. It wasn't paid, but it was really rewarding for me. So and that experience actually led me to the Arab American National Museum and just museum work in general, and wanting to do this on as a profession. So I got recruited to work as a community historian at the museum, and it's mainly because of my degree, my background, and educational background, but also the community engagement aspect that really led into it. And then I've been doing this since 2022 as well, and it's been a really rewarding experience, and especially like George said. It's not just, of course, it's the Palestinians we have to focus on right now with with everything happening, but also just as a Middle Eastern person, our history is always told differently by the media and outlets. But so I'm gonna leave it here, and we can, if you have any questions about that, please ask me later, and I'm happy to answer.
Next photo that you're gonna see. Actually, no, it's not a photo yet. So we're actually going to talk about, what do people do at museums. So it's like, what about like, what do we do and things like that? So we do oral histories, right? So as community historians, our focus is really oral histories, but we also get to dabble in other things, right? Sometimes we get to help on tours. A lot of times we get to help with curatorial and kind of like looking at what's in there, like what do we have? Because we really have to know like what is in our collection, and not just what do we have physically, but what do we have in our archive as an oral histories. We have to see what's lacking. And what I mean by what's lacking, what stories are we missing? What communities are we missing? So then that leads into community outreach, right? We have to find these communities and we have to build relationships with them and we have to locate them, and kind of like what we, kind of like this relationship that we've built with Denise and Betsy and the Virgin Islands. This is also part of our work. And eventually, sometimes that leads into us going to these communities, and learning about them, and documenting them, which is incredible. Now Shatha, she can get a little bit more about the archival work because she does a phenomenal job with, once we have the oral histories, they have to go somewhere, and so I will let Shatha talk about that.
Yeah, and thank you, George. I mainly actually put this slide up for, people to get an idea of like what a museum staff does or can do. We obviously talk about like historical preservation, which is a huge part of it, but also there's many different areas in museum work that you can do. So depending on your background or degree you're getting, like you really can get into so many different aspects of museum work. And I listed those here because, sometimes museums are like this big black box and people don't really know what happens in there or like how work is done. But there's so many opportunities for students to get involved and really get creative and apply their degree and knowledge, experience, and to make good work, good resume and good, application to work at museums if that's something you're interested in, right? Um, Obviously, the current political climate, at the US, the administration is a little tough for this field right now, but it's such a rewarding work, and it's really important. And of course, we can discuss this more if you have more questions. But yeah.
Yeah. And then this last slide is just kind of pictures of us in action. This is a photo of Shatha. This is like when we're doing oral histories. So this is an example of interviewing an individual that's very big in the Chicago area. He founded Ziyad Products, if you guys are not familiar with those. It's a very household brand for Arab Americans across the country. There's another picture of Shatha and I when we went to New Jersey, specifically Paterson, New Jersey. This is when we met with the Palestinian American Community Center, and we learned about the incredible work that they do. And this last photo is a photo of the Oral History Association annual meeting in Cincinnati of last year. And this is actually where we came into great connection and contact with Denise. This is the photo where it all happened. So if it were not for this photo and this location, we would not be where we are now and being able to share this incredible webinar with you guys. And with that, we would like to say thank you, and we'd like to open this for discussion just in case you guys had any questions that we did not kind of touch up on, and literally just for you guys to get to know us, get to know the museum more, and anything like that. So I guess I will stop sharing my screen and I will take it back to you guys.
Does anybody have any questions? Could you talk a little bit about and then I want
we've got student questions over here to Denise.
Please go ahead, Molly.
Okay, let me see if I can get it so you can see her. Go for it.
Okay, so my focus in a lot of things is in politics, and I've been following the situation with the Smithsonian, and I've been wondering how you guys have been navigating with this rewriting that the administration's been pulling of history.
Perfect. Well, question.
That's a good question, right? Thank you for that. It's obviously, like I mentioned, the political climate for, museums or any arts, cultural organization right now is really tough. I think we're all really going through a period of, losing funding and potentially losing staff, and it's not easy. It's we're all feeling the effects of it. But I think this period is really like a reminder of why we do the work we do and why it's important to continue to speak for this, the ethnic communities that are being impacted. And as long as we can do this work, like, we'll continue. And I think one main method we use to speak our truth and to really document history as it is by the community is through oral history. So a lot of times people think like oral histories might be positive, like accomplishments, what did this person achieve? But to us, it's more about like, tell us your struggles, like tell us what you've been through, tell us the whole journey, not just the happy parts.
Yeah. I'm curious right now. Excellent. Do you want to ask the question for the other
Yeah, go
students?
ahead.
Do I want to answer the question? No, do you want to ask the question and you can weigh in too? We've got another student question over here.
Go ahead.
That came up in the chat. I was just gonna ask, what's your plan in terms of spreading the information related to Palestinians in St. Thomas? I understand that you guys kind of collaborate with St. Croix, but what's the plan with collaborating with St. Thomas, as well as there is a good community in St. John as well? I guess it's not really well known, but there is. But St. Thomas does have a good thing. If you meet any Arab here, they will tell you they're from Palestine.
That's awesome. Yeah, thank you for that. To be honest, for us, for us being so distant from the Virgin Islands, this is like our first entry into this community and into this space. So we're really relying heavily on our wonderful team over there to connect us with individuals and to help us get those stories. And we really hope through this that, people, even students, can come to us and, make further connections and introduce us to people where we can do this work. And that's also part of the initiative of coming to the Virgin Islands and, hoping to connect with people in person and speaking about this project. But yeah, I'm talking to Ahmed Hussein, who is also the president of the Palestinian Friendship Association. So, and he recommended that we really dig into St. Thomas. And I was like, yeah, like, introduce us, we're happy to collect as many stories as possible from this wonderful community, right? And so, yeah, so it's an ongoing initiative. I think we're just like starting. So far, I've had 4 interviews from community members, and they've been really wonderful. But obviously, this is going to continue. This is the hope. So if any of you have any connections or you yourself want to share your story, please connect with me after. So.
Molly, when somebody asks a question over there, can you repeat it? Because we're not hearing it very well.
I was gonna ask. Okay, will do. Yes, will do.
We have a question here. Would you like to ask a question? Go ahead, we have a question here. Yes.
So in one of your slides, you mentioned combating discrimination and harmful media presentation. How do you do that, and how could others as well, learning about what's going on?
Yeah. Thank you. Did everyone hear the question? Molly?
Could you repeat that? It's a little bit fuzzy. We heard a little bit.
I can do it. She basically is asking about combating negative media representation of ethnic communities is I believe the question, and I'm happy to talk about that a little bit. And it's basically how we do it as a museum. We do it in different ways. So one is more like visual. So we host a lot of Palestinian artists that come and do artwork, and we present it as an exhibit at the space. Right now we have Raji Cook Waiting for Peace exhibit in our basement lower level in the museum, which is basically speaking about this conflict. But overall, I think speaking for Palestine, speaking for our community, especially during this time, is really like the foundation of all our work. Like for the oral history collection, for example, like we focus a lot on recording stories. We did Nakba survivors stories recently, not recently, last year, but fairly recently, and that's really from the elderly community, Palestinian community, that have experienced the Nakba and, having to make a life, adjust to life after that. So a lot of stories about displacement and, no hardships going through this. But yeah,
Shatha, can you explain what the Nakba is? Some people may not know in this audience. Can you explain that?
sure. George, I'll leave it to you, actually.
Yeah, so for anyone who doesn't know what the Nakba is, Nakba in English translates to catastrophe. And in this context, Nakba is referring to the creation of the modern day state of Israel, which also coincides with the displacement and genocide of the Palestinian people, right? You're talking about the forced expulsion of over 750,000 Palestinians, the destroying of over 400 plus towns and villages. And the one thing that we also want to mention is that while Nakba, it sounds like it was a one-time event, it's continuous because it has not stopped. So, I mean, I guess the way I can explain it the best, in, I guess I would say, like, in American context, is you think about like the Native Americans and you think about the settlers that came, constant expansion, and things like that. That's the best way that I can describe that in a very brief statement.
I just wanted you to define the words because I think that not everybody would know what that means. Yeah.
We'll be
Zero
mindful of that.
Which words would you like me to?
Well, we did Nakba's good. That was what we wanted.
Okay, sure, we can do that.
Nakba. Yeah. And do we have a story right here? Go ahead.
Hi, my name is.
Turn it on.
Hi, my name is Marisha, and I have a question about, in terms of longevity and expanding the history, what is your projects or works or ideas that you guys have for the future, or have you been working right now to help people reach the world around, like, understanding what you guys are doing?
Yeah, sure. We can. One current project right now is actually with the Virgin Islands, collecting stories from Arab Americans in the Virgin Islands. And obviously that started off, by connecting with Denise and Betsy at the conference, and it really took off. It took off from there, and we're hoping to do, like I said, more interviews. We're gonna do an in-person visit. We're doing workshops like this with you all. And we're hoping to do some sort of publication as well on this project. So all of this is being shared and presented on, different outlets that the museum uses, like social media, for example, that platform. We're hoping to do publications in, like, different magazines, newsletters, things like that. And obviously all our content is available to the public, and it's not at any charge. It's all free. Anyone can use it. We get a lot of researchers, students, professionals, just different community enthusiasts that use our materials. So it's part of, like, museum work, right? To produce new knowledge about certain groups. And for us, obviously a favorite is oral history, because it's such a powerful tool to listen to a person sharing their story, right? And especially if you see it. So you're looking at body language, you're looking at, like, emotions, it's so interactive. So yeah, that's one way. And obviously we have other projects happening at the same time, but this is the favorite, I'll say.
Yeah, and the really cool thing is that our projects are not just like one-time things. We really don't have like deadlines for these projects. We don't have like finish dates for these projects. And that's honestly one of the really nice things about the collections and the projects that we have in our archive, is because it's a continuous thing, right? We want to make sure that we're here for a long time as a museum. We want to make sure that we have as many stories as possible. And we want to make sure that we are constantly a resource for those that want to learn. So for example, I know there was a question earlier about like, like you guys are, working on St. Croix right now. How would you eventually focus on St. Thomas? And honestly, yes, we would. We would love to. But it's like we have to start somewhere. And that's how we do it, is we start with one, we build relationships, we keep those relationships. So it's not like a one-time thing. It's like we come to St. Croix, we get the stories, we leave, and you never hear from us again, right? It's a constant. How does the museum and how do we as community historians make sure that we are doing our jobs in documenting the history of really all the diverse capacities of the United States, in regards to Arab Americans. How do we make sure that we keep those relationships and partnerships alive? And yeah.
I just, sorry, before we take any more questions, I just want to add that we actually regularly, George and I meet with students and younger people doing oral history projects on their own, like not in partnership with the museum or anything, just by themselves, because they see this work as it's, it's important and it's necessary. And I just want to encourage you all to think about that. This doesn't have to be done by a big institution. Like, this is not just museum work. This is everyone. Everyone can do this work, right? Record oral histories, get stories that represent authentically the community you're in. And it can be simple. It can be like interviewing your family, like having a family archive and, making sure that history is preserved. So our work is like a network of wider projects, right? Like, we don't just exist in a vacuum. We exist in the context of, other people preserving history. And I think this is why we were really excited about this presentation, is like, talking to young people and about how to do their work themselves, right? Because you all contribute to historical preservation, despite what anyone says, and an accurate historical representation, right? Whatever community you're coming from. So I just wanna point that out.
Is there a question in the chat? I think you have a question.
We have a question in the chat. We also have another follow-up question here, because I think you're kind of inspiring museum studies over here. Hiba is going to ask another question. Do you want to say it?
So I wanted to ask, do you guys have like any internship or research opportunities for students? I remember doing a project related to both social science and Science 100, related to both Science 100 related to the environment. So I brought up what exactly is affecting Palestine environmentally, and then I also brought up related to social science, how is it affecting the people, and are people actually educated about it? And I interviewed a couple people. I have this friend who has family in Gaza, and she kind of connected me with other people to be able to interview them and ask them questions. So my entire project is based on that. So I don't know if you guys have like any opportunities for students to join in related to research projects or anything.
So internships and other opportunities for students to join.
We definitely take interns every year, so it is definitely a possibility. Please connect with us afterwards and we can talk about it in more detail. And yeah, it's definitely a possibility.
And then the question in the chat is, sorry, from Alia. Is the question, at the museum, how do you educate people on the current Palestinian conflict? And if you don't, you can also use that broadly to talk about how do you engage with maybe political content as well in a museum setting. I don't know. You can decide how you want to take it.
Yeah, so I guess I'll answer that one. So I would reframe the question. It's how do we educate people on the ongoing like genocide of the Palestinians and what's been happening the last 80 years. The museum does a really good job of not just representing like Arab Americans, but it's again, it's like it's the diversity. So we do have certain parts of the exhibit where we highlight stories of Palestinians that did witness the Nakba, and what did they bring with them? Historical artifacts that came from there, like coins, keys, rocks, containers of dirt that came from the homeland. And so we really do a good job of kind of like breaking it down, kind of like what I just said. It's like we do comparisons for people to understand, because, when you hear big words like Nakba, what does that mean, right? So we have to, as people, as those that work at the museum, we have to understand what that means so we're able to teach. We also have many community events that happen. We host many outside organizations to come host their events at the museum that are Palestinian oriented. We do Debke classes and things like that. So there's a lot of involvement from the community. So it's really not just the museum educating on what's happening with the Palestinians, but it's really the community that also helps us in that aspect, if that answers the question.
Great. I mean, I think the idea of a community historian, and for those of you who are interested, the Virgin Islands has many people I would consider to be kind of community historians in similar ways. So
Yeah, and also so oral histories at the museum. That's also, so that's where Shatha and I come in, right? We're documenting these stories for people to hear, right? People want a place that they can come to know, like what are Palestinians, where do they come from, and they come to know that these are real people. So that's what oral histories document. They document the authenticity of a person, right? It's not just they're not just a number. They're not just part of a data or a chart or a graph. These are real people with real stories. So that's another way that we make sure that we're giving proper respect to those that are going through what's happening.
We have one question here. Would you like to ask a question?
Hi, good evening. In your opinion, how does the museum address common stereotypes or misconceptions about about Arab Americans?
That's a really good question. Thank you for that. We actually have a whole section of our exhibits addressing this. So we have different ways of doing that. Basically, which we're thinking of revamping actually. But one way is like showing examples. For example, like Disney characters, right? Like whenever you see like a Middle Eastern character, they're usually the bad guy. And they have like an evil look or something like that. And so anyways, yeah, just to say that the media and like even cartoons are deeply like biased and stereotypical when it comes to Arab Americans. So we show it that way, but also I think, again, like I keep coming back to oral histories, but again, like listening to people who have experienced stereotypes and like what the impact was on their life is really actually powerful, and it's really moving. So it might be something you're like, oh, okay, yeah, they're called this term, but like what did it actually mean for this individual at this point in their life? How did it affect them? Learning about that is really a personal way of combating stereotypes. And yeah, so we do a lot through stories. There's obviously different exhibits that explain and show examples of what stereotyping in the Arab world means. But yeah.
Yeah, and there's another way that we do kind of break down stereotypes, and how I guess we prevent and teach against stereotypes is so in the video you saw there was like kind of like a map, which now doesn't exist. We have a different kind of map. It's a very interactive map, and in that map it actually shows you different breakdowns of the Arab world. What religions consist of in the Arab world. So like that's one thing that's a very common misconception, is that, for example, Arabs are all one religion, right? Arabs are only Muslim, but people forget that there's Arab Jews, there's Arab Christians, there are Arab Muslims, there's Zoroastrians, there are Mandeans, there are Baha'is, and we do like to highlight that also. And they are formed in countries that you would not expect them to be formed in, for example. And that's another way that we do that. Geography.
I know it's 6:30. Does anybody else have any other questions in this room? Molly, do you have any questions over there? Molly, Dr. Barry?
Yes, sorry, I was making sure I was unmuting the right computer. I think we are just very thankful of your time, your sharing of your expertise. Certainly inspired people over here. We were hoping to give everyone kind of a closing activity or piece to do. I believe on St. Croix you all have your little pieces of paper, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. So first, I just want to say just a huge thank you to both of you and the Arab American Museum for making this event happen and giving students a launch into the wonderful world of oral history, the meaningful nature of community curation, and the importance of listening to everyone's story. So thank you. And we're going to continue. We have another, as you saw on the poster, another workshop coming up. This one is going to build from this past to think of creative models for oral history, and in particular looking at digital scrapbooking as part of that. So please mark your calendars. This one will be on October 22nd. Creative models of family oral history for So for those of you who want to help your family kind of pull this together. So if you have any questions, let us know. And again, thank you so much to our wonderful presenters today.
And I want to thank Shatha and George, because right now in the English 101 class, we're starting our oral history projects. So you gave it a nice plug. so we're starting this week. So thank you very much. Everybody in that class is doing it. So have a wonderful evening, and we'll see you October 22nd. Thank you so much.
Thank you guys for having us. We're more than welcome.
Thank you. See you, everyone.